Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
It is time for another episode of Battles of the American Civil War, coming into about the middle of March here, and we're fresh off of the first ever showdown of ironclads on each side as those two big behemoth ships came after each other, and then they both kind of backed away, said, no, he's leaving, oh, he's leaving, and nobody knew what the hell was happening, but both sides claimed victories after that, but neither ship would ever battle again.
yeah, it was a sad display for both armies.
Yeah, it usually is when we do one of these episodes, but now we're in North Carolina today, starting off with Battle of New Bern, then we go to first Kernstown after that one. Battle of New Bern, also known as Battle of New Bern, with an E. That was fought March 14th, 1862, near the city of New Bern, North Carolina, as part of the Burnside expedition. There's a lot of Burns. Field of Bern. New Bern lies on the left, which is the southwest bank of the Neuse River, about 37 miles above its exit into Pamlico Sound. The river's broad in this vicinity and deep enough that vessels that can navigate the sound can also ply the river.
Nice.
In the colonial era, the town was quite important as a seaport, but since been taken over by the time of the Civil War from Morehead City and Beaufort, which had largely supplanted it as importante.
Nevertheless, New Bern was still a significant military target, as the railroad that connected the coast with the interior passed through the city, which was the Atlantic and North Carolina Railroad. A short distance further up at Goldsboro, the line crossed the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad, noted for keeping the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia supplied throughout the war.
Gotta have them supplies.
Thus, if New Bern were to fall into federal hands, an important link in the supply chain of that army would be severely broken. The land in this part of North Carolina is low, rather flat, sometimes very, very, very marshy.
Especially in 1862, the sod of land was mostly covered with open pine forest, although in places it was broken into low hills with deciduous forests separated by ravines. It's got a little bit of everything. It was crossed by many creeks that sometimes rise to the status of small rivers. I'm a small river. I'm a river. One of these, the Trent River, separates New Bern from the land to its south. Slightly smaller Slocum's Creek enters 16 miles farther down the Neuse. It was to be the landing site for the attacking federal forces. The entire action, aside from the takeover of the city, was confined to the land between these two streams. The railroad ran on a system of berms and occasional cuts about a mile inland from the river.
That's some rough terrain over in that part of the old country.
Yeah, man, you can't.
If anybody's from this area of the country,
They know.
it entered the city on the bridge over the Trent River. A county road passed over the same land, also connecting New Bern with Morehead City and Beaufort. In the vicinity of the battle, it lay between railroad and the river, but it crossed the railroad about 1.5 miles north of what would be the battlefield. Okay, getting yourself a little picture there, what's going on.
Right.
The road continued to be northwest, crossing the Trent on a drawbridge about 4 miles west of the city. In the manner of the time, the road was unpaved as the soldiers of the Union learned to their sorrow.
Well, they would, too.
How many paved streets were there in
Probably 1800, probably none.
1860 something? I bet you all the eastern coast are big cities, Boston.
Yeah, that's true, because they were bricks.
Right.
And little horses clacking on them all
Right.
throughout the city, yeah.
Instead of I don't know if that's how it sounds.
According to Red Dead Redemption, too.
Right.
Following the secession of North Carolina from the Union, defenses of the state were neglected by the Confederate government in Richmond.
I wonder why.
The War Department, directed at first by Secretary Leroy P. Walker, later by Judah P. Benjamin, used the state's best trained and best equipped troops to take part in the campaigns of Virginia, which were given a higher priority.
I'm gonna start.
Capital is there.
I'm gonna start doing that.
What,
when I ask
middle
my name.
initial?
Yeah, I'm gonna start doing that.
Or just your two middle initials, or your two initials. They were seen as protecting the Confederate capital of Richmond, obviously. When Hatteras Island fell to the Union forces, which you can go back and look at our episode of that, in August of 1861, only 6 regiments of infantry were available to defend the entire coast of North Carolina. That's going to do something.
Right. By that time, the Confederacy had divided the coastal defenses into separate districts for command purposes. Northern part, near Cape Lookout to the Virginia border, was assigned to Brigadier General Daniel H. Hill, who set up the defensive lines around New Bern. South of that city, across the Trent River, he had built 2 primary lines. First was a system of breastworks named the Croton Works near Otter Creek. I want to keep on saying Otter Lake. And extending inland as far as the railroad.
Extending island.
Right. 6 miles closer to the city was another substantial line anchored on the river by Fort Thompson. The fort held 13 guns, 3 of which bore on landward approaches.
I mean, so we got a little bit of defense, but...
That's a rare for a fort to have landward.
Right. And they're usually not close enough. Or have big enough guns. Mm-hmm. Hill ordered construction of a series of batteries along the river to defend against attack by naval forces. The Confederates blocked the river with 2 barriers. The first, a mile and a half below Fort Thompson, consisted of a double row of piles cut off below the water, capped with iron. Wow. And backed by a row of 30 torpedoes, which are actually those mines that are chained up. Each torpedo contained about 200 pounds of powder. It'll blow your ship to pieces. The second was opposite Fort Thompson and consisted of a row of hawks and cheval de frise, which would force ships to pass under the guns of the fort.
A little sticky out. Right. Like if you ever played Jack and, what they call it? Jack and...
Oh, Jacks.
Yeah, was it called Jacks? Yeah, that's what a cheval de frise looks like.
Ball and pick up a bunch of jacks.
Right.
Bounce it and pick it up.
It was called something else, though, I believe.
Oh man, Jacks.
Yeah. Hill hoped that he would be given sufficient manpower to fill his lines, but he was transferred to service in Virginia before the hoped-for additional troops arrived, so he didn't care. Shortly after, he was succeeded by Brigadier General Lawrence O.B. Branch. The district was divided again. Branch's command extended from Cape Lookout north only to the limits of Pamlico Sound. From there to the Virginia border and beyond was assigned to Brigadier General Benjamin Huger, whose primary concern was the defense of Norfolk and environs. This meant, in particular, that Roanoke Island, between Croton Sound and Roanoke Sound, just north of Pamlico Sound, was not included in Branch Command.
Well, good, because they don't exist for you guys anymore anyway.
Right.
It says here, because Roanoke Island fell to a combined operation of the Union Army's East Coast Division under Brigadier General Ambrose Burnside and a Union gunboat flotilla assembled from the North Atlantic blockading squadron, which you can go listen to a couple weeks ago, Roanoke and all that, under Flag Officer Louis M. Goldsborough. Now, that battle was rapidly followed by the gunboats alone, who wiped out the Confederate Navy's Mosquito Fleet and assault on Elizabeth City.
The Confederates been getting their asses whooped for the past 3 months.
Yeah, they haven't done shit, dude. Besides that one lone little piece of shit battle in Val Verde, which was not even really a win for them.
That was an Indian territory still.
Right.
Shortly afterward, Goldsborough had to leave the Sounds for duties at Hampton Roads.
What you guys just heard in the last episode.
All right. Immediate command of the ships he left behind fell to Commander Stephen C. Rowan. As a result of the battles, Union forces could move at will in Albemarle and Pamlico Sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Every city and town accessible to those sounds hence became vulnerable to the attack. The most important was New Bern, and the Burnside soon resolved to take it.
He did. He's like, my name's Bern, and I shall take Bern,
right.
New Bern, and call it New Burnside.
Damn right.
Maybe, I don't know.
You should.
Right. The importance of New Bern was no more obvious to Burnside than it was to Confederate authorities in Richmond, but they did little to secure it. Although more than a month passed after Roanoke Island fell before Burnside could mount an attack on the city, the local command received no reinforcements. They were like, we know you guys are probably next, but we're not going to do anything to help you.
Right.
One of General Branch's aides estimated that the lines would need at least 6,100 men to hold them, but he had only about 4,000 at his disposal, a number often reduced by sickness.
All right.
Furthermore, many of the men were poorly armed militiamen that didn't give a shit either way. Those are the ones that are deserting the first chance they get, too.
And that's a common theme.
Right.
Poorly armed.
You can put any word after that you want.
Poorly anything.
Right. The disparity between necessity and reality persuaded Branch to draw his lines in, abandoning some of the strong breastworks erected by his predecessor.
I mean, he still could have left them stranded out like that. At least you have something.
He could have left them exactly how they were.
Right. He would have had something there.
Well, this principal defense would be the line based on Fort Thompson.
Well, that Fort Thompson line that had been set up by General Hill extended only from the river to the railroad. They ended on the right in a brickyard that would figure prominently in the fighting. Makes sense. Because the land farther to the right was fairly firm and would allow his position to be flanked, General Branch decided to extend the line beyond the railroad and end it in a swamp.
Yeah, you ain't going to go through the swamp.
I wouldn't want to. This just about doubled the length of the defensive line. He made a major blunder in laying out the line, however.
Well,
In haste to complete the extension and faced with an exasperating shortage of labor, he decided to use a small creek as a natural part of the line, which he shouldn't have done.
They're never going to walk through a small creek.
It'll be just like the marsh.
Right.
No, they're going to walk through the creek. That swamp? You don't want that swamp ass. This creek intersected the railroad at a point about some 150 yards or so up from the brickyard. The line of breastworks, therefore, had a dog leg in its center, so it was even worse. A little blind spot right there. Jeez, old Pete guy.
Over on the Union side, we got Ambrose Burnside and Stephen C. Rowan over there commanding things of the Coast Division and North Atlantic Blockade and Squadron, 13 infantry regiments, about 11,000 soldiers with 14 gunboats on their side.
Ridiculous.
Meanwhile, on the other side, we got Lawrence O.B. Branch. He's got the 1st Division Department of North Carolina with 6 infantry regiments, about 4,000 people.
Not
and
even, though.
Cavalry, right?
Not even. More than half, probably, injured or sick.
The soldiers of the Coast Division clambered into their transport at Roanoke Island on March 11th and got underway early the next morning, accompanied by 14 Navy gunboats and 1 gunboat of their own. One of the Navy vessels was detached to guard the mouth of the Pamlico River, where it was incorrectly rumored that rebels were preparing 2 ships to cut off transports that might become separated from Navy protection. Rumors. The main force traversed Pamlico Sound, entered the Neuse River, and anchored near the mouth of Slocum's Creek at dusk.
Jeez, old Pete.
We're ready.
Right. The fleet that traveled up the Neuse River was full of infantry, who left their ships and set up south of Confederate soldiers at Fort Thompson. These Confederate soldiers consisted of 4,000 men who were behind temporary defenses. Branch was aware of their presence, immediately ordered his forces to take up defensive positions. He sent Colonel James Sinclair's 35th North Carolina Infantry to the landing at Otter Creek, in front of the Croton work, with instructions to oppose enemy landings at that site.
I would hope so. Colonel Zebulon Vance's 26th North Carolina was ordered into the Croton work. Other units guarded the river upstream, and reserves were assembled at the intersection of the railroad and Beaufort Road. All units were instructed that if they were forced from their positions, they should fall back onto Fort Thompson line.
All units were instructed to reply, right?
Right. At dawn, March 13th, the Federal troops began to disembark. Small A small rebel unit trying to contest the landing was quickly driven away by fire from the gunboats, as Colonel Sinclair interpreted his orders to defend against a landing at Otter Creek narrowly.
Burnside spent the morning getting men and equipment ashore. With the infantry came 6 boat howitzers and 2 army howitzers from the Navy.
Well, 6 were.
Right, 6 were from the Navy and 2 from the Army. Because of the weather, he decided to land his other artillery closer to enemy lines. But dense fog soon closed in. He could not communicate with his fleet. His remaining guns were not landed. A little after noon, the Union soldiers began to move toward the Confederate lines, and at about the same time, the rains began. Let the rains begin! The road was soon turned into a little mud bucket.
Turned to a little mud.
And the mere act of walking required great exertion.
I bet it did. Well, especially with these guys. The gunners with the howitzers accompanying the infantry soon were exhausted trying to move their pieces.
Yeah, screw that.
So a regiment of infantry, which was the 51st Pennsylvania, were detailed to help them. Many of those foot soldiers long remembered this as the hardest part of the battle. There we go. As the soldiers made their slow progress, the gunboats kept a short distance ahead, shelling places where rebels might be waiting. Colonel R.P. Campbell, in command of the Confederate right wing, interpreted the naval gunfire as preliminary to another landing that would take the Croton work in reverse. So he ordered a general pullback to the Fort Thompson line. Good for him.
Right.
So all I'm hearing now is the Confederates are misinterpreting everything.
When the Federal Army came upon the Federal Army came upon the first Confederate breastworks, they found them abandoned.
They're like, hey, people are supposed to be here. What happened?
They're not there, bud. The Coast Division soon resumed its march. Leaving the Croton work, First Brigade moved on the right, which was Foster's Brigade, following the country road, while the second Brigade followed the railroad on the left with his Reno's Brigade. The 3rd Brigade followed after the 1st, so that's Parks. Parks going to follow Foster, and Reno's going to go off to the Louis. They continued until they came into contact with enemy pickets, about 1.5 miles away from Fort Thompson. Daylight having been exhausted, Burnside ordered a halt and had the brigades rest down for the night, right? And he says, I want you guys to stop where you're at in order of the march, guys.
Camp out here right now. You guys stay in order and pick it up in the morning.
You stay to the left. You stay to the right. Hey, buddy.
You stay behind.
You stay back there. I don't want nobody intertwining with anybody. You stay where you're at, buddy. The howitzers did not arrive, though, until 3 a.m.
Yeah, bet. Don't push that shit through the mud, dude. The field was covered by a dense fog on the morning of March 14th. Burnside ordered his forces to form and advance on the rebel works. The Yankees did not have complete information concerning their opponent's disposition at this time. So far as they knew, the Confederate line extended only from the river to the brickyard. In keeping with this belief, Burnside ordered the 1st Brigade to engage the enemy left, while the 2nd Brigade would try to turn their right at the brickyard. The 8 howitzers were deployed across the county road.
Okay, still got the one in reserve.
Yep.
The Army also got some dubious support from the gunboats under Commander Stephen C. Rowan, who shelled the rebel positions, although they were hidden by intervening force. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
You're throwing shit in the woods. Anything can happen. This gunfire greatly disturbed the North Carolinians, but it was inaccurate enough that Burnside eventually asked Cohen to change direction. He's like, all right.
Right, you're getting a little crazy there, but
meanwhile,
it's not doing anything anyway.
Right. Meanwhile, on the other side, General Branch had put his regiments into the line. From his left at Fort Thompson to the brickyard on his right were the 27th, 37th, 7th, 35th North Carolina regiments. His reserve was the 33rd.
All right, so they're there. You need to change out some regiments. Hurry up, 33rd.
Heavily outmanned.
Oh, hell yeah. The right flank of the 35th was anchored in a brickyard, obviously. That was a brickyard kiln that was loopholed for artillery. The entire line beyond the railroad was occupied by a single regiment, which was the 26th North Carolina, plus a few companies of cavalry. The gap in this line created by the dogleg at the railroad was covered only by his weakest unit, which was the militia battalion, that only had 2 weeks of training and were only armed with shotguns and hunting rifles.
I'll take the hunting rifles. The hunting rifles.
Yeah.
Shotguns.
To give them additional support, he ordered up a 2-gun battery of 24-pounders to the kiln, but they were not mounted when they came under attack.
Jeez,
not going to do no good if you ain't mounted.
They're hoping these guys, the little battalion there, the little militia, would just at least hold them off for a second. It didn't work out.
Stupid.
Right, that was dumb. The 1st Brigade of the Union Army opposed them from the river to the railroad, right to left. The units were the 25th, 24th, 27th, 23rd Massachusetts, 10th Connecticut. The Beaufort Road ran through the center of this line, and here General Foster placed the howitzers that had been dragged along. On the Federal left, General Reno, still unaware of the extension of the enemy lines beyond the railroad, ordered a part of the 21st Massachusetts to charge the brick kiln, while the 9th New Jersey and the 51st New York would engage the enemy in support. The 51st Pennsylvania was held in reserve. The charge was successful at first, but they then found themselves under fire from the whole line and were forced to pull back.
They're like, damn, there's more people here, and they extend over the brickyard.
Right.
Well, Burnside at this time ordered his reserve, the 3rd Brigade, into the line to support Reno's 2nd Brigade.
Smart.
The 4th Rhode Island replaced the 21st Massachusetts, which had used up its ammunition. While trading places, Colonel Isaac P. Rodman of the 4th Rhode Island was told by Lieutenant Colonel William S. Clark of the 21st Massachusetts that he thought that another attack on the brick kiln would be successful.
It would be.
Rodman sent a courier to General Park informing him that he was taking responsibility, then formed his regiment and ordered them to charge.
That's good shit right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we need to keep on rolling here.
We got to hit them. We already hit them once.
Right, and we got
keep going at them, man.
We know we got more than them. Armed with better knowledge of the enemy, this charge was successful. The 4th Rhode Island captured 9 brass field pieces.
Nice.
Found themselves in the rear of the rebel entrenchments. At this point, the Confederate line broke. The rupture started then when the inexperienced militiamen fled.
Now, what'd I tell you?
And exposed the units on both of their flanks. Dang, that's crazy. That's like that's like your right tackle not doing his job,
or
your right guard, left tackle.
It's like the interior of the line just leaving, and all you got is your guards.
Boom, you're done.
Or your tackles.
Jeez, Pete. Wow. Branch ordered his reserves to plug the gap, but they did not arrive in time. They never do.
Never do.
As the line was rolled up on both wings, each regimental commander in succession pulled his unit back to escape being slaughtered.
Oh, they was about to get slaughtered, dude.
General Branch ordered a retreat, which soon became a rout.
Yeah.
The fleeing North Carolinians dashed across the bridge over the Trent River into New Bern, then burned the bridge so freaking fast that some of their dudes were left behind, and they were captured.
Sorry, guys. Gotta prevent them from coming over the bridge.
Right. They also burned a fire raft in the river, which soon drifted across to the railroad bridge and destroyed that.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
No railroad either. They're kind of hurting themselves there, though. While the battle was in progress, Commander Rowan's ships had moved up the river to assist. They received only minor damage in passing the lower barrier and then positioned themselves to shell Fort Thompson. When the fort was abandoned, they immediately passed the second barrier and moved on to New Bern. Because Branch's order to retreat included all of the Confederate river batteries, their guns were spiked and they were abandoned to the fleet.
Of course they were.
At the city, the fleet shelled the retreating Confederate troops, denying them the opportunity to regroup.
I mean, yeah, there's too much going on.
You better just leave the city now if you want to live.
Everybody just stop, and you end up somewhere. You try to figure out a way to get a hold of each other.
Right.
The retreating units could not reform until they had fled all the way to Kernstown.
Oh, that's where they regroup.
With both bridges destroyed, Burnside soldiers had to be ferried across the river by the gunboats, so that slowed them down.
Yeah.
Branch had lost 64 men that were killed, 101 wounded, 413 captured or missing, compared to Burnside's 90 killed, 380 wounded, and a single man captured. Again, though, North, they don't care. They're just throwing their guys in it, and we know we got more, so we can handle some more casualties.
Always losing more, man.
New Bern fell, was occupied by the United States of America.
Under occupation.
It remained in control of the United States for the rest of the war.
Good for them.
Immediately following the battle, Burnside turned his attention to his next important objective, getting control of the port at Beaufort, which was defended by Fort Macon.
Or Macon.
And those two are very important to Confederacy. And guess what? The Confederacy was like the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl.
The rebels did not defend Morehead City, which was occupied immediately by the Yankees, or Beaufort, which was taken on March 25th. The siege of Fort Macon began at that time. As the Union captured New Bern, it meant a turning point for Union control of the coast of North Carolina. The New Bern region was an important victory for the Union as it created more space for camps, housing, and employment for refugees.
And it took away river
access to get some supplies, man.
Come on, guys. These guys, the Confederates, were like, man, we really need to beef up that. That's a very important spot there.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
Yeah.
Stupid. Well, that battlefield is preserved today as the New Bern battlefield site. The Civil War Trust and its partners, including the New Bern Historical Society, have acquired and preserved 25 acres of the battlefield site.
Good for them.
Right.
Good battle. Union slaughtered them, pretty much.
It's ridiculous.
That brings us to the next battle, March 23rd, 1862, First Battle of Kernstown in Frederick County and Winchester, Virginia. The opening battle of Confederate Major General Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson's campaign through the Shenandoah Valley. Okay. Old General Stonewall. Jackson's division had been withdrawing up the valley to the higher elevations at the southwest end of the valley to cover the flank of General Joseph E. Johnston's army, withdrawing from the Centerville Manassas area to protect Richmond.
Right.
Without this protective movement, the Federal Army under Banks might strike at Johnston through the passes in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
So we got a little.
We might, and we probably will.
We get a little information on what the Confederate was doing right there. Old Stonewall Jackson and Johnston moving along the valley to valley.
Don't let them get through here because they got a direct path to Richmond if you do.
March 12th, 1862. Banks occupied Winchester just after Jackson had withdrawn from the town, marching at a leisurely pace at 42 miles up the Valley Pike to Mount Jackson. March 21st, Jackson received word that Banks was splitting his force with two divisions under Brigadier Generals John Sedgwick and Alpheus S. Williams, returning to the immediate vicinity of Washington, D.C., freeing up other Union troops to participate in Major General George B. McClellan's Peninsula campaign against Richmond. The remaining division under Brigadier General James Shields was stationed at Strasburg to guard the lower northeastern valley, and intelligence indicated that it was withdrawing toward Winchester. Banks made preparations to leave the valley personally on the 23rd of March.
Well, I don't know if he's going to make it. We'll see. Jackson's orders from Johnston were to prevent Banks' force from leaving the valley,
right,
which it appeared they were now doing. Jackson turned his men around and, in one of the more grueling forced marches of the war, moved northeast 25 miles on March 22nd and another 15 to Kernstown on the morning of the 23rd.
Ooh.
His cavalry under Colonel Turner Ashby skirmished with Federals on March 22nd, during which engagement Shields was wounded with a broken arm from an artillery shell fragment. Despite this injury, Shields sent part of his division south of Winchester and one brigade marching to the north, seemingly abandoning the area, but, in fact, halting nearby to remain in reserve.
Okay.
They're like, let them think we abandoned this, but we'll be here. We'll be watching.
He then turned over tactical command of his division to Colonel Nathan Kimball, who ordered the 2nd Brigade and some of his own troops along the Valley Turnpike, and despite Shields' orders to pursue the Confederate cavalry, posted 16 guns and 800 infantrymen in a defensive position on a military crest of Pritchard's Hill. Confederate loyalists in Winchester mistakenly informed Turner Ashby that Shields had left only 4 regiments and a few guns, about 3,000 men, they said, and that these remaining troops had orders to march for Harper's Ferry in the morning.
Liars.
Oh, my. Ashby, who normally had a reputation as a reliable cavalry scout, inexplicably did not verify the civilian reports and passed them on to Jackson. When Jackson was probably thinking, too, this guy, he's right. Jackson marched aggressively north with his 3,000-man division.
They all had their chests puffed out, and
the drums were extra loud that day. Reduced from its peak as stragglers fell out of the column, unaware that he was soon to be attacking almost 9,000 men.
3,000 versus 9,000.
So stupid.
We got Union, this little force led by Nathan Kimball, about 9 grand over there. And obviously Jackson's side's got about maybe 4,200 if they're lucky.
I'm guessing around 33.
Right. Jackson then moved north from Woodstock and arrived before the Union position at Kernstown around 11 a.m. on Sunday, March 23rd. The devoutly religious Jackson preferred to avoid battles on the Sabbath, but throughout his Civil War career, he did not hesitate when military advantage could be gained.
Look at this guy.
Right. He later wrote to his wife. He says, I felt it my duty to attack, in consideration of the ruinous effects that might result from postponing the battle until the morning. So far as I can see, my course was a wise one. The best that I could do under the circumstances, though very distasteful to my feelings. I hope and pray to our Heavenly Father that I may never be again circumstanced as on that day. I believe that so far as our troops were concerned, necessity and mercy both called for that battle. Arms is a profession that, if principles are adhered to for success, requires an officer to do what he fears may be wrong if success is to be obtained.
It's true. You got to do what it takes.
You got to do what takes, number one, not only for your men not to be killed, but for you to...
You got to be able to make that decision.
Right.
Well, Jackson performed no personal reconnaissance before he sent Turner Ashby on a feint against Kimball's position on the Valley Turnpike, while his main force, the brigades of Colonel Samuel Fulkerson and Brigadier General Richard B. Garnett, which is the Stonewall Brigade under Jackson's own first command, they attacked the Union artillery post at Pritchard's Hill. The Lee Brigade under Fulkerson was repulsed, so Jackson decided to move around the Union right flank, about 2 miles west on Sandy Ridge, which appeared to be unoccupied. If this were successful, his men could move down the spine of the ridge and get into the Union rear, blocking their escape route to Winchester.
If it was successful. Kimball countered the maneuver by moving his brigade under Colonel Erastus B. Tyler to the west, but Fulkerson's men reached a stone wall, facing a clearing on the ridge before the Union men could. Jackson's aide, Sandy Pendleton, obtained a clear view from the ridge of the Union forces arrayed against them, and he estimated that there were about 10 Gs. He said that too. About 10 Gs. 10 Gs, Jax. He reported this to Jackson, who replied, say nothing about it. We are in for it. We're already here.
All right.
Nothing we can do now.
Once he heard that number, he was like,
shit.
Damn.
Nothing we can do now.
Well, around 4 p.m., Tyler attacked Fulkerson and Garnett by using an unorthodox approach with his brigade in close column of divisions. A brigade front of 2 companies with 48 companies lined up behind them in 24 lines, in all about 75 yards wide, 400 yards long. A formation difficult to control and lacking offensive power at the front. The Confederates were temporarily able to counter this attack with their inferior numbers by firing fierce volleys from behind the stone wall. Jackson, finally realizing the strength of the force opposing him, sent out Colonel Jesse Burke's brigade, which had been held in reserve. But by the time they arrived at 6 p.m., Garnett's Stonewall Brigade had run out of ammo, and he pulled them back, leaving Fulkerson's right flank exposed.
Oh, jeez. Can't expose people. Panic set in among the Confederates, and as Burke's brigade arrived, it was caught in the fleeing mob and forced to retreat. They're just getting there, and everybody's already running away.
Right.
They're like, run, it's Godzilla! Jackson tried in vain to rally his troops. He called out to a soldier, where are you going, man? The soldier replied that he was out of ammunition, and then Jackson says, then go back and give them the bayonet. However, the soldier ignored him and kept running. He said, screw you.
So you give him the bayonet.
Right. Kimball organized no effective pursuit. That night, a cavalryman sat with Jackson by a campfire alongside the Valley Pike and jokingly said, it was reported that they were retreating, General, but I guess they were retreating after us. Jackson, not known for a sense of humor, replied, I think I am satisfied, sir. You know what? Basically, he's saying what's done is done.
Right. And if I were you, I'd leave the sitting spot.
I'd shut the fuck up before you something happens to you in the woods. If you know what I'm saying.
Right. Well, Union casualties were 590, 118 killed, 450 wounded, 22 captured or missing. The old Rebs, 718 casualties, 80 killed, 375 wounded, 263 captured or missing.
See,
the Moiters are there for
Union always had the higher body count for them, but they always took on more capture or missing. So
right.
The taxes that they're doing, taking care of these fucking prisoners of war, outrageous, dude.
Outrageous. Despite the Union victory, President Abraham Lincoln was disturbed by Jackson's audacity and his potential threat to Washington.
He was like, this dude is crazy enough to attack a force of 10,000 with the force he had?
Right.
What can he do?
Right. He sent Banks back to the valley along with the Alpheus Williams division. He also was concerned that Jackson might move into Western Virginia against Major General John C. Fremont. So he ordered that the division of Brigadier General Lewis Blanker be detached from McClellan's Army of the Potomac and sent to reinforce Fremont. Lincoln was like, I'm calling the shots here, boys. You never hear anything from Jefferson Davis.
All right.
Lincoln also took this opportunity to re-examine Major General George McClellan's plans for the defense of Washington while the Peninsula Campaign was underway and decided that the forces were insufficient.
He says, I need more around my capital, boys.
I mean, McClellan was doing a decent job. I don't think he thought it was as serious.
Washington's not even under threat.
Right.
But he knows all it takes is that little line by the Potomac right there.
He's seen that McClellan wasn't quite taking it as seriously.
And he's seen that, well, he doesn't know that Jackson didn't know how many troops they had. So but in his mind, he's thinking, this little son of a bitch out here, he's willing to
this dude is going to bring This is going to bring in 3,000 to our 10. We got two cannons. These guys don't even have a freaking horse.
And kill more of our guys than they lost. Can't be doing that if we're going to do that through the whole war.
Right.
Well, he eventually ordered that the corps of Major General Irvin McDowell, which was moving south against Richmond in support of McClellan, remain in the vicinity of the capital. He said, you guys ain't going nowhere. McClellan claimed that the loss of these forces prevented him from taking Richmond during his campaign. Sure it did.
I think so.
The strategic realignment of Union forces caused by Jackson's battle at Kernstown, the only battle he lost in his military career, turned out to be a strategic victory for the Confederacy, actually.
Right.
The remainder of Jackson's Valley campaign consisted of lightning movements and 5 victories against superior forces organized into 3 Union armies, which elevated him to the position of the most famous general in the Confederacy, until obviously he was surpassed by the man himself, old General E. Lee.
Yeah, Stonewall Jackson, man. That guy he's deemed a hero.
See, what this did was give him confidence because he knew what the North was saying about him.
Right.
Like, look at this guy. He's got the audacity, and then he just started doing it in all his battles. He's like, fuck it.
Yep. Going in and get these guys.
Plus, the Union's always a bunch of pussies, dude.
Right.
Seriously.
Right. Yeah,
they go down like a sack of potatoes.
They do. It was rough until we got those couple good guys in Grant and Meade and all those guys.
Well, Meade's already been out.
I think comes into play again.
Maybe.
Seldom during the Civil War was a general officer as gallant and as capable as Garnett, treated so unjustly.
Yeah.
By an objective standard, Garnett had done the best that he could at Kernstown.
Not only the best that he could, the best out of all the generals at Kernstown.
Right. Under the circumstances that it existed, ignorant of Jackson's tactical blueprint, his brigade out of ammunition and outflanked, Garnett took the only sane course of action. Of course. Why wouldn't you? I mean, what else are you going to do?
Right.
In doing so, he saved the Valley Army. That's what Peter Cozzens said, Shenandoah paper, 1862.
I think it's the book Shenandoah, 1862. But
either or, it's on paper. Jackson refused to accept any responsibility for the defeat.
Not.
Subsequently arrested the commander of his old Stonewall Brigade, Brigadier General Richard B. Garnett, for retreating from the battlefield before permission was given. That's bullshit. Get out of here.
Was it? Didn't Jackson do the retreat that made Garnett's flank exposed?
No. Garnett retreated, which made everybody else's flank exposed.
That's how it happened.
Yes.
So they retreated from the stone wall.
That was him. That's Garnett.
Jackson, finally realizing the strength of the force opposing him, sent out Colonel Jesse Burke's brigade that had been reserved, but by the time they arrived, he pulled back. Garnett's Stonewall Brigade run out of ammunition, and he pulled it back. Who's he? Garnett or Jackson, though?
Garnett.
Leaving Fulkerson's right flank exposed.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I mean, he made the call. I mean, you can't arrest a guy for that. Get the hell out of here.
Right.
Yeah, Jackson was a prick. Really, if you read a lot of stories about Stonewall, he was
Apparently.
He's a dick.
Well, the Stonewall Brigade's withdrawal, which came after it received the bulk of the Union fire and suffered the majority of the Confederate casualties, uncovered the right of Fulkerson's brigade, forcing it to also withdraw and start in a panic.
Right.
He was replaced by Brigadier General Charles S. Winder. During the invasion of Maryland in September, Robert E. Lee ordered the charges against him dropped.
Of course he
but
did.
Garnett suffered from the humiliation of his court-martial for over a year until he himself was killed at Gettysburg during Pickett's charge.
Oh, yes.
Well, we'll cover this one too. A second battle of Kernstown occurred in the Valley campaigns of 1864, so they ain't done with this area yet.
Pickett's charge is going to be its own thing from the Gettysburg.
Maybe.
Oh, it's definitely going to be.
We'll see.
It's definitely going to be. Civil War Trust and his partners have acquired and preserved 388 acres of the first Kernstown battlefield. The Kernstown Battlefield Association owns and operates the Kernstown battlefields. Nice.
Okay.
On the 1854 Pritchard Graham Farm, 3 miles southwest of Winchester, Virginia. The park has walking trails, a small museum, also has a visitor centers inside the farmhouse.
Good for them.
Yeah, look at that shit.
That will do it for us in this episode.
And 2 more Union victories.
2 more Union victories and a string of 5 consecutive that they're just started here. Battle of New Bern, March 14th, 1862, and moving, at this time, remember, while this is still going, while these battles are taking place, the Battle of Island Number 10,
it's still
which
going
we
on.
covered, is still going on.
Right.
So, yeah, lots going on in the Civil War right now. Battle of Kernstown, then coming up, we'll have the Battle of Fort Macon, Battle of Glorietta Pass, Stanwix Station in Arizona, which is a little small guy, Siege of Yorktown, before we get to the big boy, Battle of Shiloh, probably the
Pittsburgh Landing.
biggest battle of the year thus far.
Biggest battle of the freaking war. Yeah, it wasn't.
Manassas was probably the biggest one so far.
This is going to have more murders.
Yep, we got some big ones coming up here.
Ooh-wee.
Down there.
That's nothing. That's nothing compared to what's happening after that. Oh my! Talking about thousands and thousands of dead.
Yeah, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back for the battles of Glorietta Pass and the other ones I mentioned after that. But in the meantime, go check out our other show, Outlaws and Gunslingers, where by the time you hear this episode, our latest episode would have just been the Atlanta bombing in the Olympics, which was our latest episode just released. But our next one coming up will be
more FBI shenanigans.
About the a little probably not even very well known guy named Colin Ferguson, who 1993 was on the Long Island Railroad. He went on the train cars, just started opening fire, killed about 30 people. That's a little known
That's some shit.
Mass shooting that I don't think anybody really talks about, because really my first time hearing about it until I looked it up. But that's be the next episode coming up. Plus we've covered all of anything we can do about the Old West, Prohibition, Unabomber, Jonestown, Oklahoma City bomber, O.J. Simpson. We've done it all. And we will continue to do more there on Outlaws and Gunslingers, so go check that out. Plus, you guys can go check out our newest series, kind of an old throwback to what we did when we first started podcasting. We're little piece of shits nobodies.
We still
are, but little not as much piece of shit nobodies.
Right.
We did a show called Sports History of the Week, which is now it's its own show, and that's This Week in Sports History. So go to Bang Dang Network. Just search that in and you'll find all our shows. But we're 2 episodes in. What we do on that show is we take the whole week. Like, for example, this week that this show is airing is August 1st through the 7th. So everything's significant and not so significant.
Right.
Some little known facts that people might not remember of.
You never know, man.
Whatever occurred on that day in sports history, we'll go through it and do our little crazy banter back and forth and go off the line and script like we usually do on this show and our other shows.
Right.
Good fun stuff. Sports, history, and anything in between. That's what Bang and Dang are all about here.
Right. And even check out our Treading Water series. It's barely treading water. Lee and Corey. You gotta check that shit out. If you like scripted podcasts, rewrite, direct, and act in these 30 to 45 minute skits. Check it out, guys.
30 to 45 minute? You mean like 15 to 20 minute?
Well, most of them between 30 and 45.
No, not one's ever been over 35, but
Well, between 5 and 30.
Yeah, scripted / improv, little crazy private
stuff,
investigator
man.
stories. Fun stuff. Just search Bang Dang Network. You can find all our shows there. But if you guys are interested in talking about any of these episodes or more about the Civil War or history in general or sports, politics, music, news, anything else, join our Discord, brand new Discord, where we can all be a part of little conversations. Some conversations just to, if we forgot anything, that'd be the easiest way to reach us. Or you can email us, bangdangpodcast@gmail.com. But just click the link in the description, go to our Discord, and start some conversations. Whatever you want. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Civil War.
Nope.
Anything we want. We got pages for everything there. So click the link in the description of this episode, and we'll see you there. In the meantime, we'll be back for at least 3 more battles, maybe even 4 before we get to the big one at Old Shiloh coming up. Ooh, that's going to be a massive one. We'll be back then.
Crazy. It's going to be a lot of information.
Yeah.
A lot of 3 miles and 3 clicks left this way.
Yeah. A lot of crossroads here and 6 miles here. We are the Mouth Michiganders with
Bang Dang.